Well, I'm happy to drink out of the well. At important occasions in my life, I like to go top shelf. If I'm a business owner going into a highly regulated industry, I think that's an important time in your life to also considering going top shelf. Welcome to Norris McLaughlin's Top Shelf Legal, a limited podcast series where we break down the hard stuff on beers, distilleries, breweries, and spirits. I'm your host, Ted Zeller, practice group leader of the liquor law group at Norris McLaughlin. In this episode of Top Shelf Legal, I'm going to talk about a really specialized area of my liquor license and liquor world. It is distribution rights. Distribution rights is the concept where a supplier, meaning a brewer, and actually it's now being recognized in other states for wine and distilleries, but I'm going to focus on breweries because that's classically where the concept of distribution rights, franchise beer rights have come from, the world of beer. You've heard me say before, when you're talking about beer, wine, or spirits, lower alcohol by volume you make, the more regulation you face. Well, the beer distribution rights is one of them because beer is sold differently in the United States than chocolate or other foods. It is quite unique set of laws that form beer distribution rights. It's actually in the law of every single state around the United States. Because of the 21st Amendment legalizing the sale of alcohol, they did push off a lot of the particular laws to the states, so each state can have its own set of beer franchise laws, which make it very complicated for a brewer that wants to distribute its beer across the United States. At this point in my career, I think I've written a distribution agreement for almost every state in the United States, and even done ones in Ireland and Puerto Rico, Mexico, all over the place. Every country has their different concepts, but the beer franchise laws are as unique as it gets. So, beer franchise laws are basically a state-mandated monopoly, all right? If you are a brewer in Pennsylvania, you have the unique opportunity to self-distribute. So, you can choose a distributor, or you can decide to purchase a truck and distribute your own beer. We'll talk about that a little bit later because I want to focus on, again, the concept of beer franchise rights. If you are out of state, say you're someone like Saranac Brewery from New York, all right? Great brewery by FX Matt, great brand brewed by FX Matt. In order to sell beer in Pennsylvania, they have to appoint an exclusive beer wholesaler for a specific territory. That's a lot. So the worst thing that they could do, or any brewer could do, is, hey, I'm just going to appoint one wholesaler for the whole state. And that's very bad. It's a bad idea to do that. A lot of new businesses that I deal with on the brewery side have signed their first distribution agreement, and they didn't consult with a lawyer, and a lawyer who understands this area of the law, and they just appointed the whole state away. It could be a disaster for them because you want to appoint the territory where the beer wholesaler operates the most frequently. Originally, like the Philly wholesalers would only stay in the Philly 5. Now they're kind of expanding up here into the Lehigh Valley and to, the Susquehanna River, getting close to Dauphin County just from servicing from Philadelphia, even though they have other warehouses outside and it stretches their resources. These laws require exclusivity in a specific territory or else you can't sell beer. And on top of it, they're evergreen contracts, meaning you can't terminate them ever unless you have good cause, which is nearly impossible to establish. I've been involved in a lot of beer fights in my life over distribution rights. I'm currently involved in several of those cases outside of the state and one inside of the state right now. The exclusivity of beer rights under the beer franchise laws make the wholesale tier, classic three-tier system of distribution of alcohol in the United States, where you have the manufacturer purportedly at the top, the beer wholesaler in the middle, which has the exclusive right to sell the brewery's beer, and then the beer wholesaler selling it to retailers who ultimately sell it to consumers. That's the three-tier system in Pennsylvania. But really, it's somewhat inverted because beer wholesalers are kind of at the top because they have been able to monetize these rights. I've been involved in multiple deals for the sale of wholesalers or just become aware of them. And you'll take something that, say, a beer wholesaler that sells about 5 million cases a year, okay? That probably means they have a major brand like Miller Lite or say Corona and Modelo now. Those are starting to be the big brands. And those 5 million cases, there's a factor to what that generates profit-wise. So the wholesaler buying them could buy the building and the land and all their trucks and their systems for like $3-4 million, but the beer rights are worth $100 million because that's the value that is assigned to these beer franchise rights. To bring home the concept of what this exclusivity looks like is take that Corona, all right? And say Corona appointed a Philadelphia wholesaler just for the Philly 5. That means every single Corona sold in Philadelphia, Montgomery County, Bucks County, Chester, Delaware County has to pass through that wholesaler. And they're the ones who can set the price. So they're the ones that actually really own the brands. And it can create big conflict because in the shrinking beer market, I just saw an article post that more people now are using cannabis daily than drinking alcohol. We've got the ready-to-drink cocktails coming into the marketplace. We've got all sorts of alternative beverages. The beer market is shrinking. If you're the manufacturer, you're thinking your beer wholesaler is not doing a good job. And maybe they're not. Or maybe they are, and you're just not doing a good job of packaging the beer and, evolving your brand. Although what I see is always kind of like the boomerang. Like the Yuenglings of the world aren't going anywhere. Making a good, honest beer, they're going to do just fine and continue to do just fine, even though their market is probably shrinking like all the other brewers are. But these franchise rights do create certain chains. There might be an innovative wholesaler that's much better in the marketplace. It's amazing that the brewer can't freely say, well, hey, I appreciate your decades work and selling my beer and everything along those lines, but you guys just aren't getting it done. I have a preference. I'm going to go over here. They literally can't do that unless the brewery's able to establish that they have good cause to terminate the distribution agreement. And it goes so far as to expressly state in the law that the wholesaler can bring an injunction against the brewer to stop them from terminating the agreement because they lack good cause if that wholesaler can establish irrevocable loss, which courts have kind of looked at as the concepts in preliminary injunctions of irreparable harm. But that's an expensive litigation fight. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, experts for the evaluations, experts in industry, who's doing a good job, whose fault is it that the beer sales are shrinking. And if your decision as a brewer is just whimsical, hey, my buddy started this beer wholesale, I just want to go over there, you're not going to be able to establish good cause. And now think about that new to the market brewery who just appointed, distribution rights to the whole state for some wholesaler because the wholesaler showed up at their one day at their brewery and said, I want you. That's a great feeling to have. Someone wants my beer and wants to distribute it. That's a great feeling. I've made it. And then you sign away the whole state. And then you realize that the wholesaler is really good in 3 counties, but that's it. And then you go to ask them for, to say, hey, let me, and I'm like, oh, no, you got to pay me. And these rights are expensive. I mentioned it briefly before. It's a factor of gross profit. So a lot of these evaluations, we've seen them come down from the 8 to 10 times gross profit craziness of the craft world about 5-7 years ago. We're seeing domestic premium, which are the Miller Lights, Coors, Budweiser, and really the best of them all, Yuengling, who just makes a good, honest beer, but is considered like a premium domestic product, get to factors at around 3 times gross profit. But when you're talking about that, so just think about, let's use that small number. Craft is probably still around 4-ish, 4-5 for the right types of brand. But let's just use a 3 times gross profit number for these valuations of these beer franchise rights, okay? If you're a brewer and you sell 5,000 cases a year in the wholesaler's territory through the wholesaler, all right? $5,000. Usually the markup for that wholesaler for craft product can be almost $8 to $10 a box. Let's go with $10 a box because, if you're selling to the wholesaler at $35 price to wholesaler for your case of hazy IPA or some, sour or something like that, they're probably selling it for $45. That's what I mean by the $10 a box. All right. So 5,000 cases a year times $10 a box, that's $50,000. Oh, times 3, that's $150,000. Hey, Mr. or Miss Small Brewery, I'll be happy to let you go if you pay me $150,000. It ain't happening. So it's really a unique industry, and how beer is sold in the United States is different from any other consumer product, and it's important to be informed. This has been a Norris McLaughlin Top Shelf Legal limited podcast series where we run through the topics of beers, distilleries, breweries, and spirits. I want to thank you, the listener, for being a part of the conversation. Be sure to tune in next time for a brand new episode. If you would like to learn more about our work, be sure to check out my legal liquor blog or email me at topshelflegal@norris-law.com. That's topshelflegal@norris-law.com.